Hi, I'm Nick Price with Davis Technical College in the welding program. We're going to talk about in this video welding joints and the types of welds. So we basically have two types of welds. There's fillet welds and there's groove welds. And within those types of welds, we have different joint configurations. And we're going to talk a little bit about that today. So we're going to start out with some fillet welds. This is a T-joint fillet weld. So when your material is set up, making like a T, that's a T-joint. And the weld itself is called a fillet weld because it is where two pieces of material that we're welding together are on intersecting planes. So this vertical piece is on a vertical plane, and this bottom piece here is on a horizontal plane. So they're intersecting planes. So that would make it a fillet weld. So this one is called a T-joint. This fillet weld here would be called a lap joint. Now, the weld itself would go right here, and that's a lap joint where the two pieces are sitting on top of each other like that. But where the weld goes itself would be there's a face here and a face there, so that still would be intersecting. Even though these are horizontal pieces, the joint itself is intersecting because this one is taller than the other, and the face where it gets welded is a vertical face, and this is a horizontal face. So that face right there and this face right there is where the weld will be touching, which makes it also a fillet weld. This one here is called an outside corner. It is also a fillet weld. So if we look, the face of this bottom goes this way, where the weld will go, and the face of the top goes that way, so they're intersecting, and we'd weld that outside corner. Now, if we flipped it around onto this side, again, that becomes a T-weld. And that would be a T-weld joint on this side. Also a fillet weld, intersecting planes. One plane going this way, where the face of the weld would be here. The other face would be horizontal. Here we have a groove weld. This one here is, if we look at the material, this material is on parallel planes, so they're parallel with each other. And this one here is just plain simple, a square butt joint. So both the edges in here are just square, just like this edge, no preparation. So it would be a square edge, and that would be called a square butt joint. Here is another groove weld, and this groove weld, again, parallel planes for the material. This is a V-groove butt joint. So the material itself, on this material, it has a groove here, or an angle on the face of it, so it is V'd out on both sides. So there's a groove on both sides. Here is another groove weld that is a single bevel groove weld. So on this one, again, both horizontal planes, parallel planes, so they're together. One side seems it's a single bevel groove. One side is beveled, the other side is not. So the other side is just square, straight up and down on the face of it. And this side is beveled, so it has that bevel on it. So one side's beveled, the other side is not. On our groove welds, there's something else we do want to point out. This here shows an example of a groove weld that has been welded. It was a double bevel V-groove, so it had the bevel on both sides. And this was all welded from one side. So it was welded, it is a full penetration weld. Or full pen, sometimes they refer to it as. So it was welded from this side, and if we looked at the other side here, it is completely penetrated through, but was only welded from the other side. So it just penetrated all the way through, and you can see the penetration, which made it all the way through completely, which makes it a complete joint penetration for the type of weld we did on here of a double bevel V-groove weld. We also need to talk about welding positions. I have a fillet weld here and a groove weld. Now, where these might look like they're in the same position to weld those, they're not. This would be, and those positions go 1 through 4, which would be a flat, horizontal, vertical, and overhead. Now this weld here looks like, you look at where the weld's gonna go. This would be a flat weld. Well, this looks like it might be a flat weld, and it's a common mistake. It's actually horizontal. So we gotta think of the weld itself being flat. So to make this a flat weld, it would actually have to sit like that. So now these would both be flat. We also want to mention that on a blueprint, this would be considered a 1F, F being for fillet, and this would be a 1G, G being for groove. So 1F and a 1G. Now to make these both a 2F and a 2G, this one would have to go like this, and this one would go like that. Now commonly on a groove weld that's a 2G, we would have one that is a single bevel with the flat side of the bevel being on the bottom and the groove part being on the top. So that's pretty common. So this would be a 2F and 2G. Now to make them vertical, that gets a little easier. That would be this way, a 3F, and this would be a 3G. Overhead would be like this. The weld going here and the weld going here. Those would both be a 4F and a 4G. Okay, that's what we have for you on our fillet welds, groove welds, and the positions of them.